Hey everybody, welcome back to Round Numerous Podcast with Sara Mousa, where I speak to guests from across the UAE about topics you want to hear about. Today I have the honor of being joined by Dr. Adil Alzarooni. Hi, Dr. Adil.
Hi, guys. Thank you,
So
Sarah, for
I
receiving me
invited,
on this.
oh, of course, it's always a pleasure to have such incredible people such as yourself. I understand that you're an entrepreneur and you're an author. That's brilliant.
Yeah, hard mix, I have to say.
I love it. So I understand that you are author of the book, The Red Island, The Gatekeeper. It sounds like such an interesting book. And of course, you're also an entrepreneur. Please tell me your story and what got you started into writing this book.
Yeah, it took me 10 years to write this, by the way. So people ask me, in business, what's your superpower? I say patience. Patience is my superpower, not talent, definitely. What enticed me onto this is definitely me being surrounded with some really good friends, which have much bigger brains than I am, and they have inspired me to try writing. I have authored two books before, which were scientific in fields that I'm master in. But to write a novel, a fiction novel, is a very different art. Those books, just for you to have a feel, each one took me like 6 months to write, and this thing took me 10 years to write. So just for you to have a feel about that. Now, what inspired me was a habit that I have. I traveled a lot, and whenever I land into like a country or a city, I try to find a local author that has developed a novel, and preferably a novel of a story in the city. And I would go and like read the novel while I'm in the city. And the idea is that I will then live the city in a fiction and vice versa, live the fiction in a city. And that will keep the city and the people in my mind and in my heart for a longer time. And I always wondered, is there a book like that here for tourists and foreigners in the UAE, especially that we are quite an isolated community, full of mystery to others. We are quite quiet as a community and tend to stay to ourselves, let me put it that way. So I know many foreigners and tourists that would spend a long time in the country, never have met a UAE national or a local, and never would have guessed, what kind of culture we carry, what's our habits, what are our stories, basically. So I thought, what, I'd like to write a book to bring people closer to our culture, traditions, and help them like live the city or the country while they are in it, in a fiction and vice versa, so that it keeps interesting memories and could help also in many aspects of understanding us as a culture. More on that, I wanted to discuss a few concepts that I thought would be interesting to discuss with the mass. Concepts like love in this specific novel, The Red Island, and with that, I attempted to create a fictional world based on an actual place, which is Al Jazeera Al Hamra, the Red Island, part of Ras Al Khaimah. It's an island that evolved a kind of a reputation as being a ghost town. So I tried to leverage of that, but then build a story around love and challenge and struggle, and mix with it a lot of Islamic and Emirati cultures in it. So I hope by the end of that book, everybody relates and everybody would have known a bit more about Emirati culture.
Wow, that is such an impressive way to tell such a beautiful story. You've tapped into so many different elements, from like cross-cultural elements. You've tapped into bringing out, the best of Emirati culture. You've tapped into the art of storytelling, and there's so much in there that you've been able to beautifully kind of bring to life with this book, which is it's incredible. It's not even your first book that you've written. What would you say kind of was your biggest challenge in this journey, and how did you overcome it?
I went through all kind of challenges. The fact of the matter is, it's not common for literally agencies and distributors, global known agencies, to look at writers from this region. Distributors in this region have no clue on how to distribute an English written literally piece. It's not part of their domain. So I hardly had any support, neither locally or globally. I had to figure it out for myself, basically. I attempted to reach out to hundreds, if not thousands, of literary agents to look at my work and then try to recommend me to global publishers, but I failed miserably in that. And in that process, I had to do it myself in many aspects. So, for example, I self-published the book. I had to. Now, I tell you some stories on how I embarked on the journey, basically forcing myself into publishers' offices and try to get some kind of a feedback on my book. That alone would be like a movie on its own. But yeah, at the end, I published the book and I got a lot of good support from a lot of professionals. Got changed the novel, probably the whole thing more than 10 times. In fact, the last time, almost a week before the publishing of it, I changed the ending totally. This is how it goes with fiction. Unlike more scientific books, it's you are the authority in it. People know you. Your profile would say this is a guy to be trusted with books, and it's a much easier play than a fiction. With fiction, you appeal to any. The readers are basically anybody, and your targeted audience becomes anybody. So with that, then you have to appeal to a much wider sample of an audience. You have to appeal for the younger ones and the older ones. You have to relate to as many as possible. So the construct of fictional books is much different. And I love the fact that I went through the experience. I am receiving great feedback as of now. In fact, I have not received not a single negative feedback, which is very shocking to me. It seems too good to be true, but yeah, I'm actually the people around me is like, Adil, you run so many businesses and you lead on X amount of whatever, tens and hundreds of millions. Why are you so excited about this one thing? I say it's because it's totally out of the blue. It's totally not me, and I'm discovering something about me that I didn't know or think it's there. If you know what I mean. So it's a nice surprise, and I'm happy about it. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I mean, I did have a look at your reviews as well before this interview, and honestly, like, well done for self-publishing, for putting something out there that was 10 years in the making, and the fact that you have such discipline and, as you mentioned, patience, and sometimes it does take for you to barge into a publisher's office and say, hey, my book is worth reading, and even if that means rewriting the whole book 10 times, changing the ending, that's what matters. And I'm kind of curious here. Obviously, you're both an author and you're an entrepreneur. Talk a little bit about your entrepreneurship, because obviously those same values as an author kind of reflect into that as well.
Yeah, I've assumed many roles across my career, both with government agencies, private companies, and then my own setup. Started as a telecom engineer, functioned as a hacker for some telecom companies in the region, and then joined the government of Dubai. I was responsible of developing economic zones in the region and attracting foreign direct investments from all around the world. I did that for 10 years. Meanwhile, I established a family office of my family, which focused on healthcare, education, financial services, consumerism technologies, and real estate. I then left the government and also established a family office for another family, which focuses on F&B, FMCG. We are actually now sitting in a podcast studio in a Dunkin' store. So I'm trying to bring in the entrepreneurial spirit to the brand of Dunkin'. We have a gaming studio just next to us, and hopefully karaoke studio just opposite there. So the idea is that I'm very much about experiences. I want to evolve products and services to experiences, because I think experiences is where the human touch continues to exist beyond technology. And with that, I'm highly focused on this. in the last 2 years, I established my own group that is focused on venture studios. With that, I set up, currently we have around 5 startups at the same time, focused on platforms, predominantly uh, targeting, educating the mass about multiple aspects of what I am very passionate about, which is quality of life. So my passion is about how to measure, how to enhance one's quality of life, and then how to enhance it for others. And a lot of that is to do with educating. This is something I learned from building my school in here, which is Citizens. Through that, I've came to the realization, and it's partially sad that we are meant, or we were meant to be educated about many more things that are super important in life. One of which is how do you gauge your quality of life and has it for yourself and others, and in that, how do you live a healthier life, physically and mentally? How do you know how to manage your wealth so that it reflects back positively onto your well-being and your families and society? And then the last thing is social connection, the health and well-being of social relations and the impact of that onto one's quality of life now and till the to a later stage. So these are basically the venues that I currently function in, and those are my focuses and interests.
That is so cool. The fact that you really bring up the social connection. You say, I focus on quality of life and on the people and what can I do to make something, to make a positive change, to do something different. And the fact that 5 startups or 5 companies at the same time, plus the family office, plus being an author, that's incredible. And I'm kind of curious, what is your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur, and what is your favorite thing about being an author?
I know one thing about myself, which is I like to develop things for the betterment of of humanity in general. And that is what I believe the reason why God put us on earth is to develop, build, and do things with good intentions. And not because I'm a nice guy. It's being business smart. Because what is good? What is a good product or a service? A good product and a service are products or services that attend to a pain, a true pain in humanity or with the species, with individuals. So if you know how to identify a pain, which is an art, because it's not that easy to know that a problem exists. You are so lived into it that you don't realize that you are actually facing a problem, and then find the problems and find then solutions that could be delivered to solve the problem in the most positive experience. So thinking from that perspective, it sits very well with me, and with that, entrepreneurship is a natural venue for me to try and do that. With these different companies, I try to identify real problems and then try to identify real solutions and build an experience around those solutions and deliver them to people and try to help people. And through that, money is made, and that's in my opinion good money. About being an author, I think that all of us have worlds in our minds. We've all lived in imaginary worlds. We've all asked questions and had real stories and fictional stories in our minds. But we've outgrown the ability to speak it out. We've been restrained by society, the education system. We've been quite controlled as time goes by on what is seen as acceptable and not acceptable. But then books are really nice venues for you to throw that in a written format for others to see through and live a world that, in my opinion, a comment that I enjoyed a couple of times from readers is that it could have been us. And that's a nice thing to hear. That, albeit it's a fictional novel, it's a novel that has fictional characters. there's jinns in it, there are ghosts, and there are all kind of different things. But for people to feel that this could be them, it means that it has touched them in deeper in deeper thoughts. And as of now, 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 would have cried, which is even deeper. You understand me? So they felt that they felt that it connected so well with their own experiences in life that it has touched them in a way. Albeit it shouldn't be seen as a sad, so it's not. But probably it touched them in ways that I didn't see coming, to tell you the truth. But that's a nice way. And that's the objective: is that you probably filter out a lot of life noise and move into this fictional world and try to discover oneself, at least from an angle or two, and yeah, live it.
I love that. I love the fact that you are, without realizing, you've actually really impacted a lot of lives. I mean, even if it wasn't necessarily your intention with your story or with your companies, the fact that you have been able to make something relevant to people and help people in one way, shape, or another, it's something that is very rare to see, and it's amazing to see that you use your powers for good, you use your platform for good, and to show people that there are different ways that you could solve a problem or tell a story or make a story relatable to them. And I will ask you for one final time today to share something that may also be relatable to people and drive some positive change. Do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners today?
Many people don't appreciate me saying the following, but I'll say, for the people out there, and I'm not saying it as an opinion, these are statistics. Failure is the norm in life. Success is the far remote exception. That goes in business and in relationships. Being resilient is knowing how to navigate through failures to find your wins. Have a target in life, try to have a purpose. Forget all the purposes and what society perceives as success. Find your own definition of success, because none of that is real. And I think some of the good definitions of success has to do with being good to others. And there's a very interesting study that I believe Harvard and Cambridge collaborated on. It went for 75 years, whereby they studied around 1,400 plus individuals, and they followed them for 75 years. The outcome of that study highlighted what has impacted mostly those individuals' quality of life, especially towards the end. Whom were the ones that had a better end to their life? They had better years, quality of years. And the number one outcome was not health, not wealth, not diet and sport. It was quality of relationships. So today, if you are to invest, being wise, you will invest in your relationships and your health and everything else. But don't forget your relationships in the mix. Because what happens with us, because the definition of success in society nowadays is predominantly geared towards money and a house and a car and a position. And in that, we lose connections with people that matter in life. And if you look at it statistically and scientifically, you probably want to do the other way around. Look at your relationships first. That's it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adil, for taking the time to speak to me today, not just about your work as an author, not just as your position as an entrepreneur, but just from the heart. It is so empowering to see someone who is so passionate about what they're doing and to try to show people that there is different ways to find happiness, but also that they can relate to one another and they can connect to one another in the most beautiful of ways and journeys. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much for receiving me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.